In this lecture, we will learn how to switch between units. So I mean metric and imperial, commonly millimeters and inches. So we will learn how to do this in our individual designs and also how to switch units for permanent use. So by this, I mean in the user settings. So once we've opened up a new design like here, we can tell what units we're working in by coming over to the browser. And under the browser, we've got one folder here, which is document settings. If we hit the drop down next to that, it'll then detail to us what units that we're currently working in. So currently I'm working in millimeters. And if we want to change this, we can just simply left click on change active units and our toolbox pops up. We can select here centimeters, meters, inches, foot. So I'm going to stay in millimeters for the time being. So this is how we change units for an individual design. So it'll only be applicable for this design here and not for any others. But if we want to make a permanent change, i.e. all future designs to be in a specific type of units, we can come up to the top right under where our profile icon is. And if we left click on that and then hit preferences, they have many tools pop up here. So you should be starting on the general settings here, so you can change the language and so forth. We won't go through all of these, but we will be covering quite a few throughout this course. But in terms of units, we come down to the bottom and we have the default units. So under here, if we come under design, which is what we're going to be working in this course. And here we have the option to set the default units for new designs. And again, I've got these in millimeters, but you can switch between these as you like. For example, if I change to inches and select apply, OK, I then start a new design by just selecting the new design button up here. Okay, so we're in our new design now. And if we come over to the document settings, hit the drop down, you'll then see that we're working in inches. Okay, so I'm going to switch that back to millimeters, come under default units, design, put that back in mil, apply, OK. Close down that design, start a new one, and just make sure that's in millimeters as we can see here. So those are the two methods for switching units. Let's now take a look at our environment, and you see here that we have this grid. Now many students have asked me previously how they can turn off the grid. The grid is there as a reference point and it's good to help with 3D visualization. I understand that it can be quite distracting. So in terms of turning this off when we are in design mode, we come down to our display tools down here in where we have grids and snaps. Just hit the drop down there and we've got this option here to turn off the layout grid. And then we can continue to design in just a plain environment like so. Another option we have here as well is grid settings. So if I turn the grid back on and go to grid settings, we've got a toolbox pop up here. We've got the option here to have the grid as being adaptive or fixed. And for me personally, if you keep the grid on, I would recommend keeping it adaptive. So what this does is it adapts according to sort of how far you are zooming at or zooming in. It depends on the scale in which you're modeling. If you're modeling something very large, it will adapt accordingly. Otherwise, if we have it as fixed, we can actually fix like the major grid spacing. So in this case, I change that to 500 mil. You can then see the grid has changed to 500 mil spacing. And the minor subdivisions, if I change that to say 2 and we press OK, I'll then need to zoom out so that we can see the scale of the grid now. So we've had 250 mil going on half a meter and in the other direction. I'd recommend, for me personally, grid settings, I usually keep the grid on and I recommend keeping it on adaptive, pressing OK, and then regardless of the scale when modeling, the grid will adapt accordingly as we can see that I'm zooming in now. Just a reference, by the way, I'm using the mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. The way you see me panning around, I'm using the middle mouse button. We'll cover all those details in a later lecture alongside a few keyboard shortcuts. Now let's take a look at the environment and some of the display settings. So if we come down to the panel at the bottom and then under display settings, hit the drop down there. And first, let's take a look at environment. So right now I'm in photo booth. You see it's a white background. Let me give an example here. Let's select gray room. There we're working in a gray background. Let's try one more. Let's go into tranquility blue. We've got that nice blue background there. I typically work in photo booth, but it's completely up to you, whatever your preference. I like to have the white background for me personally. Also in the display settings, we've got some visual styles. So to better demonstrate this, I'm actually going to open an existing part. So this is a fastener that I've drawn previously. I'm going to use this as an example to show you about the visual styles. So the default is shaded with visible edges. Okay, so we can see the edges there are highlighted in black. We've got options here to change the visual style. So you may want to just have it shaded with hidden edges. Okay, so it's shaded part, and then we can see the hidden edges. Okay, another option there is just shaded, so that's where the edges are not so visible. We've also got there the option for wireframe, and also a wireframe with hidden edges and with visible edges. Okay, like so. The visual style that I prefer to model in is shaded with visible edges only. Okay, like so. I think that's sort of visually the most easy to read parts and assemblies in. And the last setting I want to show you, whilst we've got this part open, are the viewports. So if we hit the drop down here and go on multiple viewports, we can then see we've got our ISO view, the top right here. Then we've got our front view, top view, and side view. And this can be really useful if we're communicating with clients or you're working with other team members, other engineers, other students, etc. So another option there in which we can work with our parts. And even within each viewport, we can edit them. So for example, if I jump over to, we're now looking at the top view, okay, I can move this around and make any edits or show any visuals, likewise for the others. If we want to leave the viewports, we just hit the drop down again and then just go on single view. Then we're back to our original part in a single view. Okay, I hope that will make sense in this lecture. And again, if you have any questions, please send me a message. Aside from that, I will see you in the next lecture.